Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 370 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. So, how are all of my old souls doing out there? Well, maybe you don't consider yourself an old soul, but maybe you're just a beautiful soul. I know this because you're human and you're listening and you're constantly wanting to improve. That's what it takes to be happy in this world, is never-ending improvement. But it also is knowing that life is working in your favor. Always remember that. If you're not seeing it, just look for it harder and ask that question: how is this working in my favor? And you may not see it. It may not show itself to you immediately, but you'll see it when it's time. Just know that. Okay, so I started walking with my friend Lena. We walk for 4 miles or so, and it takes us about an hour, and we have great conversation on the whole walk because we have a lot in common. We have similar mindsets. So we were talking the other day, and I said this out loud. I said, I have really been trying to stop listening or reading things that I know are going to bother me. And as I said it, I thought to myself, that sounds really silly. I'm going to try to not do something that will hurt me. Of course, if we know we're about to do something that isn't good for us, wouldn't you think we would just not do it? Well, you would think that. But how many times do we do it anyway, knowing it's going to cause us a problem later? Wouldn't you think we'd be thankful that we had that warning message and course correct? Well, think about it. When you're driving down the highway, maybe your mind is distracted on something and you sort of veer off the road and you hit those rumble strips that tell you that you're heading off the road. We don't just ignore those and keep going in the wrong direction, right off into the grass or into the ditch. We actually do a course correct. That's what those rumble strips are there for. To say, hey, you might need to go in a different direction. You're about to run off the road. And you're headed in the wrong direction, and if you keep going, you're going to end up in the ditch, or worse, into a concrete wall. They're there to make us aware that life is about to get harder than necessary if we do not change course. I'm glad they're there. Funny thing is, we have those rumble strips built into our inner guidance system for our everyday life. Like it or not, you have them, and so do I. But sometimes instead of actually correcting our course, we ignore them and we just keep on going in that direction, right into the problem. It sounds silly, but we all do it. I mean, we feel ourselves about to pick a fight with someone we love, but instead of pulling back and changing directions, we go full on into the argument. Or maybe we sit down to dinner knowing we're have a big day the next day, and we still decide a bottle of wine is a great idea, knowing you're not going to be your best tomorrow because of it. Or maybe you're in a good mood, feeling great about life, but then your dopamine addicted brain says, hey, pick up the phone and scroll on X or Facebook or the news, knowing it's probably going to raise your anxiety through the roof. But we do it anyway. We know it's going to make life harder, but we still do it. Why? Well, I can think of a few reasons, and you can see if any of these resonate. Maybe a few of them do. I mean, I know for me they do. I can come up with 4 off the top of my head, and I'm going to give an answer to each one of these at the end, so keep listening. But first of all, let me give them to you. So the first reason I think that we ignore those little warning signs that we're about to do something that is going to make our life harder is because we're on autopilot. We're just going through our day just like every other day, and subconsciously we know the things we do that are making life more difficult, but it never really hits our conscious brain to stop doing them. That's autopilot. Now, the second reason is we think it's normal to do these things because everyone around us does them, and we just tell ourselves, hey, lighten up, have a little fun, instead of actually listening to that inner rumble strip that's guiding us towards what we really want. So maybe all of our friends do it, and we think something's wrong with us if we don't. Or we think we won't fit in if we don't, like we're not like everyone else. Or maybe we even compare ourselves to everyone else in that way. And finally, the third one is we just keep numbing our feelings. We don't want to feel frustrated. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel fearful. So we avoid these feelings by indulging in whatever it is that you indulge in to distract yourself. Even though most of the time, the indulging just exasperates the feelings eventually. Now, for me, I think it's more the last one than anything. I don't like negative feelings, so I act like they aren't there, or I distract myself from them. I noticed it this week, especially because I'm trying to do these new videos for my podcast so that I can grow a YouTube audience. But the videos are animations, and the learning curve is so huge. And I noticed that I would get stuck on trying to get something to work, and when it didn't, I would get super frustrated. And the first thing my brain wants to do when I'm frustrated is avoid that feeling. And I do that by picking up my phone and scrolling. I noticed it though this time. Instead of picking up my phone, I said, okay, all right, I want to distract myself, but I also just want to feel that feeling and stick with it and allow myself not to quit doing this. I want to feel it, and while I feel it, I can figure this out. Or I can just distract myself and just forget all about it and then come back to it later, maybe. And then it would be like starting all over, which actually makes my life worse. It makes it a lot harder. But I stuck with it and I figured it out. And I realized that frustration is just a feeling. It can't hurt me. So I felt the rumble strip and I course corrected. And the more I'm okay with seeing the negative feeling through to the end, the better I get at it. I noticed again that this was a recurring thing for me when we are talking. I've talked a little bit about the house next door. We bought it. And we plan on renting it. And we've had it on the market for about 8 days now, and we haven't rented it yet. And I noticed myself not liking that feeling of risk and stress and thinking, oh, forget it. We should just sell it. Forget all this stress. We should just sell it. But then I thought, wait a minute. We knew this was going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. So I just need to chill. It's a high-end rental. It's probably not going to go in a week. Give it time. It will rent. We know that. So I just sort of sat with my feeling of stress and I talked it out instead of allowing it to take over, when deep down I know everything is going to work out as it should and as it's supposed to. I heard that rumble strip and I course corrected instead of just wanting to numb it or wanting to distract myself or actually wanting to just fix it by selling the house, which wouldn't work for us long term. So there's so many times if we just allow ourselves to recognize that the feeling we have that's telling us, hey, you may want to course correct here, because if you stay on this line of thinking or you keep going in this direction, it could cause you to run into some trouble. If we course correct before it gets too bad, we're generally able to make our life a lot better, because deep down we all usually know when we're making a decision that's contrary to what we ultimately want. Like for us, we ultimately would like to own that house and have it as a rental property. Selling it would just be a quick fix or an easy distraction from the stress that we have. And sometimes that's okay, but we do it all the time. And if we do it all the time, it becomes a habit. And a habit of doing things that go against our inner guidance system, that's when we make life a lot harder than it needs to be. So if you're living on autopilot, it means you aren't really aware of those thoughts and you're just kind of going through the motions. I can tell you from experience that meditation and journaling has helped me stop that, because when you become aware of every thought in your head, which is what meditation helps you do, you're no longer on autopilot. You can't be, because you're too aware of the present. You're too aware of your thoughts, which helps you give control over them. And you want control of your thoughts because they control everything you do. And then journaling just makes you be more intentional, especially when you do it first thing in the morning and you specifically set an intention for that day. Now, my intention for most days is I want to be intentional, confident, and present, which has me questioning all day. Am I being intentional today? Am I working from a place of confidence? And am I being present with the people I'm with or with the project I'm working on? I do that almost every single day. Now, if you're doing things that make your life harder because you think it's normal and that's what everyone else does, well, guess what? Do you want to be normal? Do you want to be average? I don't. And you don't either. You're listening to the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. Normal isn't for you. You set the standard. Tony Robbins always says, love your family, choose your peers. You may need to put yourself around people with higher standards. And finally, if like me, you find yourself wanting to avoid feeling a feeling so that you distract yourself from it in whatever way is normal, maybe eating, drinking, or social media, notice you're doing it. The more you notice yourself going to distract yourself from an uncomfortable feeling, the better you get at it. Think about it. We don't do, or we do things all day because we're trying to avoid a feeling. The other day I thought to myself, I need to really step up my gym clothes game. I feel like I've gotten a little lazy. But I noticed another thought that popped right in is like, oh no, people will notice and that will be uncomfortable. Now I was proud of myself for catching that thought because it was sneaky. And they are sneaky until you really start calling them out. I mean, because that could make me just be like, oh, forget it. I'll just wear my old gym clothes that I always wear. So you see how that little sneaky thought could just have you just being normal like everyone else. But you see, the opposite is also true. The more you see the feeling all the way through, the more you realize it's not so bad. And trust me, this is the work I'm doing right now on myself, and it's not easy, but I'm willing to do it because I know that on the other side of that feeling is pretty much everything I want. If I stop being afraid to feel, who knows what I'm capable of? At the very least, I'll notice myself about to make life harder and course correct. That's my challenge to you today. Figure out the reason you ignore your inner guidance system when it's telling you to course correct. Is it because you're on autopilot? Is it because you want to fit in? Or is it because it's uncomfortable to feel a negative feeling, so you just distract it away? You aren't destined to make life harder than it needs to be. It's just what you've practiced up until now. It's time to listen to those rumble strips and course correct. Share this with 3 people with an inner guidance system. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.